Aditya Birla Capital, co-powered by JK Tyre.
Welcome to the NewsHour. I'm Madhavdas Gopalkrishnan. Ladies and gentlemen, from Assam to UP, the push to modernize madrassas has only gained momentum in the last couple of weeks. On one hand, there's a crackdown of illegal madrassas linked to terror, while on the other, there's a thrust to regularize and reform the madrassas. While hardliners and opposition continue to stall the attempt to bring a badlav, today on the NewsHour, we will reveal why it's the need of the hour. Now, Times Now has accessed a sensational report by the Child Rights Panel that decodes how madrasas are receiving lump sum donations, but the spending on food or quality nourishment of children is actually on the decline. This NCPCR report states that the cost of feeding children has gone down by 50%. The overall donations received amount to over 10,000 crores. But where's the money going if the funds received are in surplus? The report captures the time period from June 2021 to this year. It states that madrasas received over 8,000 crore rupees in zakat, which is religious charity mandated by Islam. Funds received at the end of Ramzan were over 900 crores, while donations received after Eid al-Adha were around 1,200 crore rupees. But still, the cost of feeding madrasa children went down by 50%. Listen in to what the NCPCR chief had to say when we spoke to him regarding this.
हमारी रिपोर्ट ये बताती है कि ग्रेजुअली मदरसों की इनकम में इजाफा हुआ है, लेकिन बच्चों के खाने और खुराक पे जो खर्च कर रहे थे उसमें 50% तक की गिरावट आई है। साफ साफ बात यह है कि बच्चों की सिचुएशन पैथेटिक है, बच्चों की सिचुएशन वहाँ पे अच्छी नहीं है। यहाँ तक कि हमारी रिपोर्ट ये भी बताती है कि वहाँ जो सिलेबस है वो सिलेबस औरंगज़ेब के ज़माने में औरंगज़ेब का बनवाया हुआ है जो वहाँ पे चल रहा है। मैं आपको बता सकता हूँ कि मदरसों के नाम पर एक बड़ी फंडिंग कलेक्ट की जाती है, जाहिर है जिसका इस्तेमाल बच्चों के लिए नहीं हो रहा है।
Sam, a different picture was playing out. Locals took matters into own hands in Golpara district. They demolished a madrasa alleging that the building was used by two Bangladeshi nationals for terror activities. This is the fourth madrasa demolished in the last 1 month. At least 7 madrasa terror modules have been busted in Assam in the last 4 to 5 months. But the Congress has shot a letter to the minority panel alleging that the demolition of madrasas is illegal. But it deviates and deflects when asked about the madrasa fund report. Listen in.
फंडिंग अगर आ रही है और उसका मिसयूज हो रहा है तो भारत सरकार की एजेंसीज क्या कर रही हैं? और ये जांच एक बृहत्तर रूप से सभी के लिए हो। मदरसे तो शिक्षा के मंदिर हैं, डोनेशंस जारी हैं, सारी जांच के दायरे में आनी चाहिए। सारी एनजीओज को आप जांच के दायरे में लाइए और उसके बाद एक सम्यक और संवैधानिक कार्रवाई कीजिए। सिर्फ वोट लेने के लिए खबरें मत बनाइए, ये खतरनाक है।
हमारा ये कहना है कि कोई भी कमीशन जब कोई फैक्ट फाइंडिंग कमेटी का रिपोर्ट बनाता है उसका पहला शर्त होता है साइंटिफिक टेम्पर पे उसको नापना कि आपके पास फैक्ट क्या है। सरकार की हैसियत नहीं है कि वो भारत के लोगों को पढ़ा सके। सरकार टोटल ध्रुवीकरण, पोलराइजेशन का काम करना चाहती है।
However, even the hardliner clerics are in no mood to give legitimacy to a report which highlights glaring lapses. Listen.
कोई भी चीज को हमेशा सही करने की और सही है तो और अच्छा करने की हमेशा गुंजाइश रहती है। आपने देखा ना कि आसाम में क्या हुआ है, तो वो तरीका अगर इख्तियार किया जाएगा तो वो तो नाजायज होगा, नामुनासिब होगा। चीज को ठीक करना है, खत्म तो नहीं करना।
अब हमें नहीं मालूम कि ये इन्होंने इन्फॉर्मेशन कहाँ से गैदर की है। जनरली आप भी जानते हैं सैंपल सर्वे के तौर पे चंद मदरसों या चंद जगहों को से इन्फॉर्मेशन गैदर करके रिपोर्ट लोग बना लेते हैं। लिहाजा इस बात को हम मानने के लिए तैयार नहीं कि 50% ही पैसा इस्तेमाल होता है। लिहाजा हम लोग अपने रिसोर्सेज से इन मदरसों को चला रहे हैं, अवामी चंदे से चला रहे हैं। लिहाजा बेहतर यही है कि इन मदरसों के साथ कोई छेड़छाड़ ना की जाए तो बेहतर है।
मुख्य डिसीजन ये है कि हम मदरसों के ताल्लुक से जो एक गलत इमेज बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है उसको दूर करेंगे। हम कंप्लायंसेस के ऊपर पूरी तरह से गवर्नमेंट के साथ हैं, जो कंप्लायंसेस हैं वो होना चाहिए, लेकिन हम उसी के साथ साथ इस बात का भी विरोध करते हैं कि मदरसों को टारगेट करके ऐसा इमेज नहीं बनाना चाहिए कि जैसे कोई मदरसा गलत काम कर रहे हैं।
And that brings me to the legitimate question they're asking this evening. Are we blocking reform to secure votes in this country?
You're watching the NewsHour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Let's go across to our guests for more on the story. We have with us Priyank Kanoongo, the NCPCR Chairman. With us also is Dr. Anand Raghunathan, author. Shantanu Gupta is with us. He's an author as well. Professor Atik Ur Rehman is a political analyst. With us also is Touseef Ahmed, lawyer. Sanjay Jha, author, is with us, as is Sameer Singh of the Samajwadi Party. Let me bring in Professor Atik Ur Rehman. And Professor Atik Ur Rehman, let me begin by asking you a simple question. A few days ago, we saw the reaction from a prominent leader of the AIMIM, a member of parliament even, Asaduddin Owaisi, who calls this a chota NRC. Now, if the funds are there, if the institutions are flush with 10,000 crore rupees, as the NCPCR estimates, that's a significant sum of money. And despite that, if the actual spending on basic things like food is going down by over 50%, this is a serious cause for worry. That things somewhere, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is, but somewhere there is some kind of mismanagement going on. Because the people who should be receiving the benefit of those funds, or perhaps better facilities they could have been utilized for, better books, better infrastructure, better washrooms even, for instance, all that is not happening. Money is actually being returned. What's going on?
Madhav, I would not, go into some hiding and ifs and buts. The simple proposition is, if you want to raise the stature of the kids and the children studying in the madrasas, as rightly the NCPRC, suggests, why don't we pull them by the shoulders rather than pulling their legs? A simple proposition. Whenever we contribute, Madhav, to the madrasas, the community is all the time behind the madrasas and their managements to show what on exactly they are earmarking the funds given by the community. And it's a very, very deep fight between the community and the madrasas, that yes, even by, by their wishes and this thing, they are unable to completely take all the funds into nutrition. Because besides nutrition also, there are other areas wherein they have to divert their funds. And herein comes the government of the states, even the NGOs. If there is a problem of malnutrition, is, Madhav, tell me, the problem of malnutrition not in other schools? And that is why the midday meal schemes are there, and everywhere the midday meal schemes are a facade.
Okay.
Every time, day in and day out.
Let me bring in Priyank Kanoongo. Okay, you're making that point. You're making a point that this is not a problem only restricted to madrasas, but is there in other schools as well. Priyank Kanoongo, what would you say to Atik Ur Rehman, who says that this problem with midday meal schemes is not limited to madrasas? It is there in other schools. And there are reports in certain schools where such quality standards have been, reported. There have been scams reported, for instance. Do you agree with Professor Atik Ur Rehman, who says that this is not limited only to madrasas and don't restrict it only to madrasas, but it's a larger problem in the education sector? Priyank Kanoongo.
मैं एक बात यहाँ पे आपको सबसे पहले स्पष्ट करना चाहूँगा कि मिड डे मील जो है वो बच्चों का इंटाइटलमेंट है. राइट टू एजुकेशन एक्ट बच्चों को मिड डे मील देने के लिए बोलता है. वो इंटाइटलमेंट के रूप में बच्चों को दिया जाता है. बच्चों का हक है, अधिकार है. हम उन मदरसों की बात कर रहे हैं जो अनरिकग्नाइज्ड हैं, जो अनमैप्ड हैं, और अनफॉर्चुनेटली बच्चे वहाँ पे मिड डे मील से महरूम हैं. क्या अतीक उर रहमान साहब नहीं चाहते कि बच्चों को मिड डे मील मिले, बच्चों को किताबें मिलें? और ऐसे बच्चों की संख्या बहुत बड़ी है. ऐसे बच्चे 1 करोड़ 10 लाख से ज़्यादा हैं. हम भी तो वही बात कह रहे हैं कि जो बच्चे अभी तक मेन स्ट्रीम होने से महरूम हैं, उनको कम से कम ये बेसिक्स तो मिलना चाहिए. यही अगर रिकग्नाइज हो जाएंगी, यही अगर मेन स्ट्रीम हो जाएंगे, तो ये इंटाइटलमेंट्स के लाभ बच्चों को मिलने लगेंगे. हम और क्या कह रहे हैं, यही तो कह रहे हैं.
All right. Quick response. Atik Ur Rehman, you want to respond to that? Quick response from you, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Priyank. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया जो आपने इतनी केयर की इन मुसलमान बच्चों की और मदरसों की. यही तो बात कही गई थी उस रिपोर्ट के अंदर जो स्टैचर कमेटी में आई थी, कमीशन में आई थी, कि मुस्लिम्स का जो डाउनफॉल है, जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, उसको लाने में सरकारें विफल रही है. उस पर हमारी जो आज की सरकार है, उसने क्या इल्जाम लगाया था उस वक्त के प्रधानमंत्री पर? और साचर कमीशन ने एक और सजेशन दिया था, इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज कमीशन का कहां है? कौन सी सरकारों ने कोशिश की है उन कमीशंस को लाने में? इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज कमीशन कौन सी ऐसा समुदाय है जो तरक्की याफ्ता नहीं होना चाहता है, जो साइंटिफिक टेम्परामेंट नहीं चाहता है, जो अपने बच्चों के लिए अच्छा नरिशमेंट नहीं चाहता है? सरकार
की क्यों बात कर रहे हैं?
ओके साल से
क्यों चिल्ला रहे हैं?
बातें सुन रहे हैं प्रियंक जी।
ओके यू आस्क्ड योर क्वेश्चन,
जवाब तो ले
यू आस्क्ड योर क्वेश्चन, नाउ
मेरी आवाज ही ऐसी है दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण।
ओके यू मेड योर पॉइंट, नाउ प्रियंक जी जवाब दीजिए।
अच्छा, देखिए जस्टिस सच्चर कमेटी की रिपोर्ट में मदरसे में पढ़ने वाले बच्चों की जो संख्या ली गई थी, अनफॉर्चुनेटली उस वक्त की सरकार से और सच्चर कमेटी की रिपोर्ट में डेटा लेने का क्या गड़बड़ हुआ, लेकिन उन्होंने जो जिन मदरसों की संख्या ली वो मदरसे थे जिनको यूडाइस कोड हासिल था, यानी जो रिकॉग्नाइज्ड मदरसे थे। अनरिकॉग्नाइज्ड अनमैप्ड मदरसे सच्चर कमेटी की रिपोर्ट में शामिल नहीं हैं। ये बच्चे इनविजिबल हैं, इनके ऊपर प्लीज़ रोशनी डालने दीजिए, इनको मेन स्ट्रीम होने दीजिए, रुकावट मत डालिए, इतनी सी बात है।
All right. Let me bring in other panelists now. Touseef Ahmed, the larger question is of reform, and this reform is something particularly in the unmapped sector, which is in fact something that is beyond the purview of the government. If the central schemes like right to education, the midday meal scheme, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, all of these have to reach those schools at some level or the other, they would have to be mapped. They have to be brought into at least the radar of the governments, which is currently not the case, and that's the point that the NCPCR is making.
You see, we all know, the records show that the government schemes and the benefits meant under those government schemes have failed to reach the institutions which are already under the radar of the government, institutions which are aided by the government. They have failed. The teachers of those schools and madrasas which are aided by the government the teachers of those institutions have failed to get money from the government.
So by that logic, sir, the government should not try to do anything good for society. Government should shut shop for any, I mean, leave alone madrasas. We should shut down Manrega, we should shut down all subsidies for fertilizers, everything in this country. What kind of logic is that, sir? Yes, there may have been some failings, but surely we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I understand your compulsion to support BJP, Madhav.
There is no compulsion. It's not about BJP or Congress. Even if there's a Congress government tomorrow. One second, Touseef, please get my point. No, you can't get away by making an allegation. If there's a Congress government tomorrow also, the same logic applies. Governments have to try
I will rebut your I will make the allegation again. You finish?
No. One second. Please be a little logical and don't unnecessarily get emotional.
Government already has a duty.
There is a way in which governments work, sir. Can we just say tomorrow that governments have failed to deliver?
I don't need a certificate of logic from your channel. Now
what kind of logic is this?
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
No, obviously you're selling half truths on national television.
Are you done? Now give me uninterrupted 1 minute.
But please talk sense. Don't speak half truths on national television.
Why are you not talking about
don't speak half truths on national television,
corruption in Ram Janambhoomi Trust?
Don't speak
Why are you not talking about
national television? We have debated all the stories. Please don't teach me what I should be doing on national television.
You are telling half truth.
Not at all.
I am
we are
speaking
quoting
the
an
full
NCPCR
truth.
report and asking for reform. And that reform can be in any religion. It's not restricted to one. It's about a government scheme and how government schemes function.
You don't behave like this generally. Madhav.
Neither do you, for that matter.
I understand you are very mirchified by my statement, but yet I will continue. I will repeatedly say what is fact. The fact is that Mahant Dharam Das had lodged a written complaint about the corruption in the fund collected for Ram Janambhoomi, about the misuse of that fund. What action has government taken? If government really wants to reform, yes, they must reform. What is this reform? This report that you're talking about, I heard the report that was played on your channel. What does the report say? The report says that there is corruption. On what basis? On the basis of some sampling. What is the percentage of sampling? What is the criteria of selection of those madrasas for sampling? That is not clear. Secondly, what the report says is that the syllabus is from Aurangzeb's time. No, that is wrong. This is a lie that the syllabus is from Aurangzeb's time. The syllabus is from Prophet Muhammad's time. The Quran which we have received from Prophet Muhammad's time will remain so. Centuries will come and go, but the text of the Quran will not change. The syllabus of the syllabus of Hadith and Quran will not change. It will remain so. Will you change the text of the Gita and other religious texts of other religion? You will not.
Well, sir, I will only say this. I will only say this, sir, that, you know, along with traditional education, modern education can be given alongside scientific education can be given. I don't see how the two are in conflict, but since you have raised questions about the methodology of the report, I'm going to bring in Priyank Kanoongo. Okay, you made your point. Priyank Kanoongo, questions are being raised about the methodology of the findings. How have you reached this conclusion of 10,000 crores? You have only sampled very few madrasas. That's the allegation coming from Touseef. Quickly respond to him, please. Jawab dijiye.
देखिए, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, भारत में 2011 के सेंसस के अकॉर्डिंग जो आउट ऑफ स्कूल बच्चों की नंबर है वो 8.4 करोड़ है, ठीक है। उस सेंसस के अकॉर्डिंग 6 से 14 साल की बच्चों की जो संख्या है वो 25 करोड़ है। तो परसेंटेज ऑफ आउट ऑफ स्कूल कितना हो गया? 33% हो गया। तो टोटल नंबर ऑफ मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन कितने हैं? 3.8 करोड़ हैं। 3.8 करोड़ में से 33% हटाएंगे तो 1.1 करोड़, एक कैलकुलेशन जो मदरसों में पढ़ रहे हैं बच्चे, ठीक है। फिर जो अभी जस्टिस सच्चर साहब की कमेटी का जिक्र हो रहा था, जिसने केवल यूडाइज कोड को ही अपने डेटा सोर्स के लिए लिया था, हम उसी पे चलते हैं। वो बोलते हैं 4% मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन अटेंड मदरसा दोज हु आर हैविंग ए यूडाइज कोड, दोज हु आर वेल रिकॉग्नाइज्ड, वो है 15.3 lakhs। रिमेनिंग मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन इन अदर इंस्टीट्यूशन और आउट ऑफ स्कूल, दैट मीन्स 3.7 करोड़। एनरोलमेंट जो मुस्लिम बच्चों का है एज पर यूडाइस वो है 2015-16 में वो है 2.7 करोड़, दैट मीन्स नॉन एनरोल्ड कितने हुए? 1.1 करोड़। एक और कैलकुलेशन देख लीजिए, 15-16 में टोटल एनरोलमेंट है 19.7%, परसेंटेज ऑफ एनरोलमेंट ऑफ मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन बताता है यूडाइस 13.8%, एनरोलमेंट ऑफ मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन बताता है 2.7 करोड़। तो टोटल नंबर ऑफ मुस्लिम चिल्ड्रन इन इंडिया वो है 3.8 करोड़। 3.8 करोड़ में से मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ ना, अब सुनिए तो मेरी बात। 3.8 करोड़ में से जब आप 2.7 करोड़ को माइनस करते हैं तो कितना आता है? 1.1 करोड़ आता है। दीज आर द कैलकुलेशन बेस्ड ऑन द अवेलेबल डेटा। अब इस रिपोर्ट पे अगर किसी को कोई क्वेश्चन है तो आप हमारे दफ्तर आ जाइए, हम आपको रॉ डेटा दिखा देंगे सारा का सारा। हमने 16 शहरों में जाकर जो मुस्लिम डेंस पॉपुलेशन वाले शहर हैं वहाँ मदरसे में पढ़ने वाले बच्चों से बात की है, उनके साथ कंसल्टेटिव मीटिंग्स की हैं। आप मेरे रिपोर्ट के पेज नंबर 95 पे आकर अगर देखेंगे तो उसमें से कुछ सैंपल्स हमने लिखे हुए हैं। बच्चे हमसे बोले हैं, हमसे एक बच्ची 12 साल की दिल्ली में बोली है, यस ये कम्युनिटी विल थिंक अबाउट इट कि बच्चों का पैसा कहाँ जा रहा है। और ये देखिए बच्चे जो हैं वो देश के बच्चे हैं, और बच्चों का आर्टिकल 21A में जो राइट है, मेरी बात समझने की कोशिश करिए कि आर्टिकल 21A में बच्चों को राइट टू एजुकेशन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन देता है। सरकार की ड्यूटी है ये जानना कि बच्चों को उनके हक और हुकूक मिले। इसमें किसी को क्या सवाल हो सकता है?
All right. There are a number of questions. I don't want to get into a larger debate. Yes, all right.
आप राइट टू एजुकेशन से महरूम रखने के लिए कोई भी, आप बच्चों को महरूम रखने के लिए कोई भी दलील नहीं दे सकते, है ना?
All right. Let me now quickly bring another panelist.
को महरूम रखने के लिए तो कर्नाटका में हिजाब पे बैन कर दिया।
All right, hijab and I think these are two completely different things. Let's please not dilute this debate. Touseef, let's not dilute this debate, please. Let me bring in other panelists now. Sanjay Jha, important question that I want to ask over here at this moment is this: the government says that they are wanting to go ahead in the process of reform. Now, the opposition coming in is that this is only the many allegations coming in. There are questions, of course, that Touseef is asking about the methodology, but the government says that they have done the math, and it's on the basis of this that they're going ahead preparing reports and asking for these reforms to be implemented. In your view, is there something prima facie wrong with these reforms being implemented?
Well, Madhav, two very quick points. Number one, the government, if it says that there is a problem with the madrasas and the education there has been substandard, then it needs to recognize that the whole humbug of minority appeasement then stands exposed. You can't have the cake and eat it too. At one point, the BJP-led government says there is minority appeasement, the Muslims are getting preferential treatment. Well, clearly they are not, right? So I think the BJP needs to be very clear. cut out your political hypocrisy or tell the people of India that your intent is not to really improve the standards of madrasas, which may be a very legitimate concern, but really to ultimately polarize the country for electoral gains. The second point is very relevant. And I don't think, Madhav, because you're holding a very serious program, let's not miss the woods for the trees. I'll give you one interesting anecdote that I think is very relevant for today's discussion. Why are we only looking at Madrasa? And why are we not recognizing that over 350 million people in our country are actually deemed illiterate? And that majority, by the way, it's a majority population. What is the BJP doing about it? There's an anecdote I need to share with you. It will make you laugh. This, by the way, belongs to a BJP state. I think Mr. Shantanu Gupta and others may be aware of it. Where one teacher literally has been teaching in 25 different schools at the same time. At the same time, one guy. And that tells you the kind of scams with the education sector. Can we look at the data? I have all of it. I can put it out. I don't want to bore the people with stat. Look at the number of teachers per school. Look at the number of blackboard per school. And I'm very happy to say that the party that I have supported and continue to do so, whether it's the right to education, or whether it is the midday schemes were brought in by the Congress government, which actually did not bring any religious discrimination and did not waste its time talking about madrasas or non-madrasas.
Okay.
That madrasas will support. I'm not going to even deny it. But the BJP's intent is always just one, is to create some kind of a religious context so that they ultimately make it aware that the minority institutions that are not recognized are probably doing this activity.
Right. I'm going to come to each. Okay, number of points you've raised over there. There are several of our panelists who still not spoken. I'm going to come to you, Shantanu, in just a minute. I want Dr. Anand Raghunathan to respond to that because several points being made over here. That all of this is happening only to create divides in society. That this is happening with a particular intent. That BJP is being, less than honest with the truth because it can't say that there is a community that is, at one level is pandered to by the so-called secular parties. On the other hand, saying that they are backward in other respects. How do you look at all of these and these divisions in terms of the questions that's being raised by Sanjay Jha? Dr. Raghunathan.
Madhav, I've been listening very patiently to all my fellow panelists, so please, I expect a courtesy of 2 minutes of uninterrupted time. Madhav, I have to say this, that finally in Yogi Adityanath and Hemanta Biswa Sarma, we have two chief ministers who are taking steps towards true secularism and not this sham variety this country has been practicing on the back of our pseudo-secular constitution. One, how can someone object to religious schools' income sources being audited? Are we a banana republic? And if the amount as claimed by Mr. Kanoongo is in excess of 10,000 crores, half of it from secret sources, this is not just an educational or auditing issue, I'm afraid. This is a national security issue. Number two, the state has no business running religious schools. Secularism is total separation of religious and state. भाई डिक्शनरी लेके आऊं क्या समझाऊं आप लोगों को सेकुलरिज्म का क्या मतलब होता है? Our constitution, I'm afraid, is plural, not secular. There are half a dozen articles and amendments and directive principles in our constitution that make it plural, not secular. In fact, the word secular was inserted in our preamble by Indira Gandhi during the emergency. It was absent from Ambedkar's constitution. And it is this pseudo-secularism that has allowed the state to control Hindu temples and run madrasas. In fact, it astonishes me that UP is running 514 madrasas and Assam was running 617 madrasas whose primary job was to impart Islamic education and Sharia dictats. All these schools in Assam will now be converted into regular schools. So the pupils will have a choice to either continue there and receive non-religious education like other children, or leave and join private madrasas, to which no one should have any objection, as practicing and imparting religious teachings is a constitutional bona fide right. This is a step towards promoting inclusivity, Madhav, among the minority community and should be welcomed by all Indians. Isme problem kya hai? After all, if the children were being taught verses like that haven't changed according to one panelist from 1300 years, do not marry your women
given to polytheists men unless they believe in Islam 2:221, or there is no deity except Allah 40:62, or those who deny the Quran, their necks will be shackled and they'll be dragged in boiling water 40:70, or those who disbelieve in our verses, we will drive them into a fire 4:56, or polytheists are the worst of creatures 98:6. If the children were being taught all this, I hope you can see the irony that here are two states accused of being Hindu Rashtra by Muslims, teaching Muslims that Hindus are the worst of creatures and do not marry Hindus unless they convert. Well, good luck with promoting inclusivity. And finally, Madhav, just 30 seconds. Madrasas are the hotbed for terrorism, quote unquote. Who said this? No, not a Hindu, but a Muslim, Parvez Musharraf. And very finally, 10 seconds, according to one panelist who says कि भाई राम जन्मभूमि के फंडिंग में करप्शन हुआ, पहले उसको देखो फिर मदरसा का देखो. ये कैसा लॉजिक है भाई? According to that, unless we catch Vijay Mallya, then this TMC acolyte will say that Partha Chatterjee should not be investigated.
All right. Let me know a number of points over there, but let me get into the main debating points that we haven't yet covered, and that I want to take this question across to Samir Singh. The question that arises, Samir Singh, is about what has happened in Assam. Since March, over 30 arrests, 37 if I'm not mistaken, including about 7 or 8 of religious preachers, Maulvis, Imams, etc., who have been arrested in Assam. And all of them almost being linked to big terrorist organizations. That's the allegation. ACUS, ABT, Ansarul Bangla team, these are some very, very serious accusations that have at least come up in the state of Assam. I mean, that may not apply necessarily across the country, but these are certain concerns about how madrasas were being misused.
Madhav, as you correctly said, yes, there have been multiple arrests and links have been developed with terrorist outfits over multiple madrasas. But then the question again, which you said yourself, that it can't be implemented throughout the country. But yes. So the point here is that if the bulldozer action that has been taking place in Assam, Samajwadi Party or any opposition party, I don't think anybody stands, so we are not here to dilute matters of national importance or national security. If any measure has to be taken to ensure national security, that needs to be taken. But the entire point is, if that anti-national, if that terrorist has any links with any institution, is it correct to bulldoze that institution per se? Because I don't think so.
2 points on that. If I can just come in.
Numerous.
Samir, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but just 2 points. I just want to make 2 points. 2 points which are relevant to what you just said. The first point is that the Assam government claims, and this is the government's claim entirely, I'm just going by what they claim, they say that this entire bulldozing that has happened is not because of the terrorist links, but they say it's because of illegal building structures and the complaints about the violation of the building codes, etc. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is that if there are 10,000 crores that are coming in, and the allegation of Mr. Kanoongo is correct that over 50% is through unaccounted sources, does that not lend itself, as Anand Raghunathan also referred to national security issues, or the potential of misuse at least? We're not saying that everywhere there's terrorists, but at least a few misguided people could be led astray.
Definitely, Madhav, in fact, I was about to come to that. There is a lot of confusion with what is happening in UP about the madrasa reforms and the madrasa survey, and what is happening in Assam. Those two are very different things, but somehow, while the Minister of Minorities Welfare clearly states that we are only conducting this survey to understand what the current situation of the madrasas, of the non-recognized madrasas is. We want to develop, we want development of the children who are studying in the madrasas. We want to modernize these madrasas. And on the other hand, we have debate where we are actually saying that madrasas are a breeding ground for terrorists, and we want to, we want to investigate the sources that the funds are coming from, whether they have any links with the terrorist organizations or with people from outside the country. Now, if such a confusion is there, which is there in this debate today itself, because we are talking about two different things here.
There are two instances. One second. We are talking about instances in Assam and instances in UP. There's no confusion.
Madhav, please.
There's no confusion.
Madhav, 10 seconds.
Okay. Dr. Raghunathan wants to respond to you. Quick response and then I go across to Shantanu.
Yes, Madhav, plain logic.
In UP, I'd just like to complete my...
Okay.
Okay, you made your point, but okay, quickly, 10 seconds, please complete your point.
Yes. So what is happening in UP, the only reservation we have, that we're not against modernization of madrasas. You modernize madrasas, but in the meanwhile, the Samajwadi Party or the opposition would have welcomed this step if this was a blanket educational reform survey which was being conducted not only on madrasas, but with every educational institutions, be it government primary schools or private coaching institutes and tuition institutes and madrasas in the same manner, and in as a consolidated reform, that because the situation of government primary schools in Uttar Pradesh is pathetic right now.
Okay.
So even they need the support of the
you made your
government.
Point. You made your point. Anand, quick
needs
response,
to be
please.
conducted so that every
yes, you made your point. Sabine, now let others come in. Anand, quick response, and then Shantanu Gupta.
Yes, very, very quickly, 2 points. Madhav, yours is a media house. If your media house was getting a revenue of 10,000 crores and 5,000 of which was through some secret source, every panelist on this debate tonight would be grilling you, skewering you, demanding, where the hell did you get those 5,000 crores from? So my question is, why the hell are madrasas any different? And number 2, I have no issue with madrasas. You see on the photos right now, the images, there are these young children who are ये ऐसे करके रट्टा लगा रहे हैं, कितना समझ रहे हैं कुछ. अगर आपको अपने बच्चों को ऐसी भेजना है जगह, आप भेजिए, लेकिन स्टेट क्यों फंड कर रहा है? I don't understand this. Are you a secular state or not? What is the definition of secularism? Secularism means there is a complete distinction between separation of church and state. Why are state governments funding such schools?
Okay, these are all pertinent questions, but before I go across, and we're almost out of time, Shantanu Gupta, quick question to you, sir. I'm just quoting very quickly from a Parliamentary Standing Committee on Human Resource Development, which submitted its report in 2021 to the Raj Sabha. They have expressed that school education department has not used the allocated funds for providing education to madrasas over the past 3 years. This is a disturbing trend, they noted, and needs to be rectified, the panel said. In FY 2018, the allocation was 120 crores. In fact, it's the same for the next 3 years. The expenditure was 107.89 crores, utilization of 89%. In FY 19, it was 120 crores. The utilization was just 15% at 18.25 crores. And in FY 20, it was 120 crores with 63.57 crores, or a little over 50%. The question is this, that you can blame the state governments, you can blame the madrasa managements, but even the central government schemes ultimately somewhere are not working. So why only blame the madrasas?
Nobody's blaming the madrasas. We are trying to say, if all these allocations has to go where they should go, first of all, let me know what is the entity size, right? So in 2017, Yogi government started a registration. Got to know in Madrasa board there are 16,500, around 500 are supported by the government. There are 11 questions that Yogi government is doing in this survey. And what are these questions like? Who is the owner? Is the land registered? Number of teachers, number of schools, what is the curriculum they're doing? I think there are 2 troubling questions which a lot of people are getting troubled with. One is, what is the funding source? As Dr. Anand was saying. And second is, are you linked with any other NGO, any national, international NGO? I think these are 2 contesting questions. You know, in 2017-18, Yogi government did the survey of all is 130,000 schools. And it's a 22-point survey of from toilets to taps to boundaries to gate to everything, and so that finally they can allocate fund block-wise, district-wise. So survey is done just to see what is as is, so that all the problems that we are stating can be fixed. I should know the entity before even fixing it. It's just a diagnosis report.
All right, it's just a diagnosis report. That's all right. Sanjay wants to respond to you on that quickly. Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah. I completely agree with Shantanu and with Anand on the transparency needed for who funds whichever institution, because these have serious implications. So my question to Anand then is very straightforward. The RSS, which is, by the way, one of the world's biggest NGOs, also runs a lot of children's schools, Anand. So Anand, my question to you is, do you think the RSS, its books must be audited and put out in the public domain, because it runs multiple schools? It has a massive educational infrastructure. Would you favor that its books are audited?
Okay, quick response. Almost out of time on this debate. Anand Raghunathan, quick response to that.
Absolutely. Yes, why on earth not, Sanjay? Anybody who's running any NGO, any institution has to have an audit done. And incidentally, I have written on ACL schools, and ACL schools do get their audits done. But let me ask you, is it mandatory if the state is funding an institution for that institution to get audited? Yes or no? Is the state funding RSS?
Absolutely yes. So let me ask you. So you agree,
state
right?
Is funding RSS.
Kindly use your good offices.
Is the state funding RSS?
Get the RSS audit done and let us put it in the public domain.
Is the state funding RSS?
All right. Let me just come in there because this is obviously a very heated topic. It's of course a very sensitive topic. There's no two ways about it. And there are multiple points coming in. Of course, a very shocking NCPCR report, and we'll have to see what further action comes out of this. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us on debate number 1. Priyank Kanoongo, NCPCR Chairman, as well as, of course, Professor Atik Ur Rehman. We also would like to thank Touseef Ahmed for joining us. Sanjay Jha and Dr. Anand Raghunathan and Shantanu Gupta stay with us for the next debate on the show this evening.